Picture this. It's 1942. The entire world is on fire with the Second World War, and right in the middle of it all, in British-ruled India, a storm is brewing. This was going to be the final, all-or-nothing push for freedom. And this is the story of that movement, a movement that would shake an entire empire to its very foundations.
We shall either free India or die in the attempt. Now those are some powerful words, and they were spoken on August 8, 1942, by none other than Mahatma Gandhi. Yes, that Gandhi, the man famous around the world for his philosophy of nonviolence. This was a call to action, a mantra for millions that he called do or die. The tone was sharp, it was absolute, and for Gandhi, it was something nobody had ever heard from him before.
So you have to ask, right? What on earth could push the world's most famous champion of peaceful resistance to make a call like do or die? What brought India to this absolute flashpoint? Well, to understand that, we need to jump in the time machine and rewind a little bit.
Okay, so this do or die call, it didn't just appear out of thin air, not at all. It was really the boiling point, after years and years of broken promises, of frustration building up, and of being dragged into a world war that most people in India felt they had absolutely no say in.
You see, the tension had been climbing for a while. Back in 1939, Britain just went ahead and declared India was at war with Germany. No discussion, no asking for permission. You can imagine how well that went over. Then, fast forward to 1942. The situation is even more dire. The Japanese army is advancing, getting closer and closer to India's borders. Suddenly, Britain is desperate for Indian cooperation. So they send a delegation, called the Cripps Mission, to try and negotiate a deal.
But those talks hit a brick wall, and they hit it fast. The Indian National Congress had one very clear demand: immediate independence. Real self-government right now. What did Britain offer? Not that. They offered a vague promise of dominion status, sort of like independence light, but only after the war was over. And they wouldn't even give a clear timeline for it. The two sides weren't just on different pages, they were in completely different books.
And Gandhi, well, he summed up the offer with a devastatingly brilliant line. He called it a post-dated check on a crashing bank. I mean, it just perfectly captures that deep, deep distrust. For the Indian leadership, a promise from Britain felt totally worthless, especially at a time when the British Empire itself looked like it was on the verge of collapse.
So with the negotiations dead and everyone's patience completely gone, Gandhi gives his do or die speech. The British response was swift, an attempt to stamp it out immediately. But what they actually did was light a fuse that set off an explosion they couldn't possibly control.
The British plan was to decapitate the movement before it even got started. Within hours of the speech, bam! Gandhi and the entire top leadership of the Congress Party were arrested and thrown in jail. But this move backfired. It created a power vacuum. A young activist, Aruna Asaf Ali, in an incredible act of defiance, hoisted the national flag anyway. And that one single act became the signal. A spontaneous, unplanned, leaderless rebellion just erupted all across the country.
And I mean, this was truly a people's movement. You had workers walking out of factories, students walking out of their classrooms. With the main leaders in jail, a new underground leadership started to emerge, with figures like Jay Prakash Narayan coordinating acts of sabotage. They cut telegraph lines, they damaged railways, anything to paralyze the British administration. In some regions like Satara and Midnapore, protesters actually took over completely, kicking out British officials and setting up their own parallel governments.
Now, remember, the British Empire is fighting for its very survival in World War II. They saw this massive uprising not as a protest, but as a grave threat. Their response was swift, it was systematic, and it was absolutely brutal. And don't just take my word for it. The Viceroy of India himself, Lord Linlithgow, sent a secret telegram to Winston Churchill. In it, he said this was, and I'm quoting, by far the most serious rebellion since that of 1857. So in the eyes of the British, this wasn't a protest, this was a war on the home front. The numbers behind the crackdown are just staggering. To put down the rebellion, the British authorities arrested over 100,000 people. Think about that, over 100,000 people, most of them imprisoned without a trial for the rest of the war. And get this, at the absolute height of World War II, Britain was forced to divert 57 infantry battalions. That's tens of thousands of professional soldiers away from fighting the Axis powers just to regain control in India. That shows you how seriously they took this threat.
They also used tactics like collective fines. So if a village was even suspected of helping the movement or taking part in sabotage, the British would punish the entire community with a massive fine. It was a strategy designed to break the will of the people through fear and intimidation.
Now, it's important to understand, not everyone in India supported the Quit India movement. The political situation was really complex. The Muslim League opposed it because they were focused on their own goal of creating a separate nation, Pakistan. The Hindu Mahasabha also boycotted it. And the Communist Party, after the Soviet Union was attacked by Germany and joined the Allies, actually supported the British war effort.
So on the surface, it really looks like the movement failed. It was crushed with overwhelming force. But its real legacy is much more complicated. And in the long run, you could say it was incredibly successful. It set the stage for the final chapter of British rule in India.
In the short term, the outcome was pretty clear. By 1944, the Quit India movement was effectively over. The protests had died down, the leaders were locked away, and the British were back in control. It was, without a doubt, a tactical victory for the empire.
But, and this is a huge but, strategically, something fundamental had shifted. The movement had shown on a massive, undeniable scale that the people of India would no longer accept being ruled. The British government was forced to realize that governing India by force against the will of its people was simply an impossible, unsustainable task.
The true legacy of this movement was profound. It crippled the British war effort by tying up so many troops and resources. It absolutely shattered any illusion of moral authority they had left to rule. The spirit of rebellion it unleashed didn't go away either. It led directly to later events like the Royal Indian Navy Mutiny in 1946, which proved the British couldn't even rely on their Indian soldiers anymore. All of this convinced the new government back in Britain that holding on to India was a lost cause. The question was no longer if they would leave, but how. The road to independence in 1947 was now paved.
Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating paradox, doesn't it? The Quit India movement was suppressed, it was crushed. And yet, it ultimately achieved its main goal. It's a powerful reminder that in the long arc of history, sometimes losing the battle is exactly what you need to do to win the war.